Hi guys, today we're going to be taking a look at Teams best practice in the bigger picture. So by the end of this video you'll understand some tips on who can set up a team, what's a good way to name teams, how to set up functional teams across your organisation, and how to organise content and documents across the organisation as well. My name's Gavin Jones. I work for a Fortune 500 company as Transformation Manager, and all of the tips that we're producing on YouTube are real life scenarios that we've come across in our day-to-day job. We've got a new video coming out on Teams every single Tuesday, so make sure you hit the subscribe button and the little bell notification icon if you haven't already to get notified every time we release a new video. And then without further ado, let's take a look at Teams best practice for bigger picture stuff. Okay, so this was a question that came in from a comment on one of our videos from Maritz, so apologies if I mispronounce your name, but thanks so much for taking the time to comment and ask questions. It really is the best way to learn, so if anyone else has got any other questions, more than happy to reply to you directly, or if it's quite a long series of questions, I'll just make a video and reply to you, because it's bound to be of use to other people as well. So I've got Maritz's question on the screen, and then I've just got some builds on a PowerPoint slide just to try and bring some bits to life, but we'll go through the questions one by one. So this was after the best practice video, which I'll link in the description below if you've not seen that already. But to be fair to Maritz, that was quite a lot of best practice, like actually getting in and using Teams. All of Maritz's questions about bigger picture stuff, so all the setup behind the scenes, how we should structure your teams, etc. So if we just go through line by line, Maritz's first question is, who's allowed to create a team in a bigger company? So in our company, when Teams first got switched on, there were no restrictions at all. Anybody could set up a team, and if you've used Teams in that experience, it's just you can click join or create team at the bottom, name the team, and then within a couple of seconds you're in and can add people to your team and get motoring, which I thought was great because I'm an early adopter and I love that sort of stuff, so it allowed me the chance to play with Teams and to get up to speed with it. We've now locked it down, so end users can't create a team. It's centrally done in IT, and the main reason that IT wanted to do that was the naming convention. So I guess someone up in global head office was seeing loads and loads of teams, not knowing what they're for, and so we had a naming convention, which I think is probably one of your second questions. What's a good way for naming in Teams? We've now got a 2-character country code, so GB for Great Britain, US for United States, etc. Dash, then the function that that team's in. So most of my ones are GB dash sales dash, and then whatever the team's name is that the user wants it to be, or the owner of that team wants it to be. I think that's helped IT out, so whenever anyone's seeing that global list of Office 365 groups, they can at least see which country it's from, where it's sort of originated from. In practice for an end user, it just means that it takes a bit longer for your team to get created rather than just doing it yourself. However, that's assuming someone knows what they want to do. So I think although we've got the naming convention sorted, actually what would be good is to have something in place to advise the person that's requesting a team to be set up. So when we first trained teams out quite widely, everyone was like, oh yeah, I love that, I want to do it for my own team, like ahead of a rollout plan, and wanted to, like, how can I get my own team? Whereas what they actually meant was, how can I get my own channel? So they just wanted a channel in their existing functional team. If there's no filter, you might end up with quite a lot of teams when people just wanted channels, and to, especially if you don't work in a tech company, to assume that an end user understands the nuances between teams, channels, permission rights, whether you can or can't share files between each other in different teams, I think that's a bit of a leap. So it is good to lock it down a bit, I think, but probably the point of locking it down should be to advise the person that's requesting it. We don't currently have that in place in our organisation, or formally, apart from just asking someone that knows a bit about Teams, how do I do X, Y, Z? If you just went through the formal process, the team would just get set up automatically, but the naming convention would be sorted out for you. So yeah, I definitely recommend going through somebody to set them up, rather than letting anyone set it up for that reason. So going on to the next part of the question, should there be a team for every organisational unit, or better organised based on functional teams projects? So this one's a great question, and one that couldn't find much advice on when we were doing ours. So I've got some PowerPoint builds. So I would recommend having functional teams, because I think that's when you get the most benefit out of Teams, to have a wide number of people in a team that can all see what's going on if they need to, and bring people into the conversation when they need to as well. Depending on how big your company is, if it's a pretty small company, I guess you could get away with an entire company team and segregate it by function. But then I think quite quickly you'll end up wanting to segregate it further, and then you might end up with quite a few channels. So I guess in any sort of traditional organisation, you might have some major functions like marketing, sales, supply chain. And if you imagine, you could have then a team for every single function, and depending on your role, you may then be in more than one team. So if you're finance and you need to work with sales and marketing, you'll be in both of their teams. If you're in finance and you need to work with sales and supply chain, you'll be in both of those teams. So I guess there's going to be crossover between teams by person, but I think it's okay to then be in more than one functional team, and you've got that breadth across. What I've not put in the diagram is then we've also got some, if you're our support function, got some functional teams sort of going across the bottom, I guess, that would be in this diagram as well. Having your own separate team to do that and collaborate on the files to get it done before it gets published, I think is of benefit. So we've also got like a finance team where they can put all their documents to while they get them ready, and then they would publish them and then put them onto one of the functional teams, depending on what the subject was. So at the time of recording, there is still no private channels in Teams, and really the only way you can get around the privacy that will come with private channels is just by having a separate team. So we've got a very similar naming convention so that you sort of know what it's about, but then we've got some teams that are like functional teams but just for the senior people in that function. So that's got its own issues, but right now if you want to segregate the senior guys' collaboration from everyone else until private channels comes out, the only way to do that is really through a separate team. So we've got some teams that are senior functional, and then we've also got some teams that are senior cross-functional. So our company's set up to do quite a lot of cross-functional working before Teams came out, and there is a need then to have like a senior team that's a cross-functional team, but it's not like a project, it's just their day job that they're straddling, you know, both those functions. So we've got senior functional teams, senior cross-functional teams, and then teams for all of the major functions. I guess top to bottom on my imaginary axis would be seniority, so that's why I put senior guys at the top, and these teams then would have everybody in from the very low grades to the senior guys. So the senior guys would be in both the senior team and the main functional teams as well, if that makes sense, if that wasn't clear. And I guess the main use of Teams, which makes it spread quite quickly, is then setting it for a project. So I love doing projects on Teams, and I despise being on projects that don't have Teams set up, because it's just absolute nightmare to run a project with spreadsheet actions, Microsoft project that not everyone's got access to. Might have a SharePoint site, but it's all check-in, check-out stuff, because that's how the project manager likes it set up, and then there's just stuff flying around the email as well because there's external contractors. So I absolutely hate working on projects that aren't in Teams. love being on projects that are in teams. It just makes everything so much simpler. So then in this imaginary example of a company, then you might have a team for every project that you've got running. And then again, if you're an end user, then you might be a member of a couple of projects, a couple of functions, and if you're senior, you might also be on a senior cross-functional team or a senior functional team as well. So you might be a member of a few teams, but everything should be sort of segregated in terms of permissions pretty well just by setting those up. I guess just to finish off that example then, I guess you might have like a stage and gate process on top of your projects where people need to see what's going on in each project and send updates to an overall group of people that make a decision whether that your project goes through a gate or not. And that you then might have a team that's got all of the sort of board, for a better word, of the stage and gate process to then sort of receive your project updates. I guess you wouldn't expect them to dive into each project, and there's no real need to keep a live version of your status. I guess the process, or most people's business process, would be once a month they want a project update, so then they'd just send their project update out of a project update file out of their project and into the stage and gate process so it's everyone in that team can have a look at it. So hopefully that makes sense so far. But yeah, I would say using projects and functions. Having a core project team that has all the information together just makes that project run so much slicker and quicker. But I really think all of the published benefits of all the time and money you can save from moving stuff onto teams really becomes really powerful when you've got a whole functional team. All the senior guys can see everything that's going on at the bottom. All the bottom guys can see everything that's going on above them, and all the collaboration that's going on, and just having everything in one place that anyone can get their hands on, and all the search functionality of having all your files in one team as well, a big functional team. It's just, I think all the benefits really come out from there. So on to how do you store your documents? How do you organize your content and your documents? So within our sales team, we've got a channel for every account or every customer. We've got a channel for every group of customers, so like sales channel, which gets quite tricky when you're saying channel about sales channel, but a channel for a sales channel. So we've got 3 big sales channels in our sales team, and then every customer or account channel will be part of a sales channel as well, but obviously there's no hierarchy in Teams channels at the moment, so you just get rid of the rest of them just by the end user's view, rather than be able to group them into certain channel groups. And then the documents are just stored the same as you would in any shared document library, I suppose. So everyone would keep their own files in their customer channel, and then within each customer channel we've got a sort of standard of which folders you should have in there. So like deals, business plan, all your financials, all your marketing stuff, it's all sort of laid out. These are the folders we expect to see as part of being a good salesperson, and this is how we want you to structure your folders. I guess rolling that up a bit bigger, we run integrated business planning, where we'd expect information to flow up through a series of meetings and go on to the next meeting and roll our way up to the senior cross-functional teams and up to the country leadership team. And then the files in that regard would work the same way, in that we'd have some files at the customer level, have some other files at the sales sub-channel level, and then roll their way up. And that's what we use Wiki for as well, to keep track of all those links and keep them all together so everyone knows exactly where things are coming from. I think I mentioned in the Wiki channel, in terms of organising the files in that regard, we would have like a live version of a file and then archive all the old ones. So we'll have within any given folder, we'll have a file that's like, this is the live file that keeps getting updated every, or whenever it gets updated, whichever cadence that information is available. And then once a month or once a week, or whatever the cadence of the use of that file, we will save a copy of it into an archive folder, just belt and braces while people get really used to the new Office 365 versioning. Obviously anything that's changed in the live file, you can go back through the version in the Office document and go back to any other version at any other time period, see who's changed it, roll it back, get different information from different versions. So we've got both of those things going on. So we've got really well organized, and we've also got live files and archives. And then most of the files will be saved in the functional team. There's one caveat to that, is that there's also a need for, I guess, stuff in marketing to then also be visible by sales. In a lot of instances, that'll be the same thing as if you were in finance wanting to get your stuff ready and then publish it. I guess most of the time, marketing will be working on something till it's ready and then publish it into sales. There's some documents that we need actually for our business process to work to be shared across all of these teams. And the way we've done that is, if I can just draw a little circle around here, we created a document store that then is just, we called it wide access, which as part of our business process, we actually made it in the marketing team and just went into the back end of the SharePoint site that's associated with the marketing team and added a new document library, divorced that document library permissions from the team, so that anybody within that team has got access to the wide access document storage, but then also we can add other people to the permissions of that site as well. So we then just added, so that the wide access thing sits in this team, but then we also added permissions for that team and that team, so that if there's a file saved here, say, in the wide access team, then anybody in any of these teams can see it. And then we just use the add cloud storage button in the files tab of each relevant channel, so that you could then pull in easily, without leaving Teams, any files that are saved in this wide access document library, which again is something we created in one of the teams and divorced the permissions of. So if that helps, if you need any more info on the wide access stuff, I can do a separate video on that, but it's just the same as if you had a separate SharePoint site effectively, and then just added everybody that needs to see anything in there, which for us was just, pretty much every knowledge worker in the company needs access to the files that are in here. So we just set it up all that was already in a team, but it doesn't really matter if it was a separate SharePoint site. The only reason we did it in a team and not a separate SharePoint site is we didn't really want people jumping out into a completely separate SharePoint site where it was only holding a few documents. Seemed like a bit of overkill to keep all the permissions and all the, that SharePoint site ticking over, and not getting automatically deleted or anything, rather than just adding another document library into it, a team that's already there. And then, is Teams the #1 communication hub you work in? So there is definitely emails going around within the company. I think it's one of the biggest change initiatives we've seen moving to Teams. People's habit and people's language is still emails, even if people are having a Teams chat and they haven't got a file to hand. Rather than saying, can you just add it to the chat, people's languages, can you just email it to me? So we definitely do still have emails, but we're trying to reduce them. I think it is a really big habit change to stop people emailing. We've been doing it for tens of years at this point, and it's really tricky to get rid of. But yeah, the idea is we should be using Teams for internal collaboration. If we need to use email, it should be for external collaboration. And that might be someone you don't usually work with, so I guess there's no point adding someone from the supply chain to the sales team if they just want to ask one question. probably just email them to them. And actually, email probably will be the right method of communication for some things. Where we are in our team's journey, then we're trying not to use email, even if it is the right way, because we just need to break that habit. So first thing is break the email habit, get people onto Teams and get them happy. And at some point in the future, I think email will be the right communication method for some things internally still. But that time isn't now. It's whilst we're still embedding Teams. Cool, so yeah, shifting from IBM Lotus Notes to Office 365 I think is definitely beneficial. As a quick aside, I went to a Gartner event a few months ago, and they said that they'd had people, or they'd known of people starting in a company and seeing, the laptop and the technology they got given and the software they were using, and had walked out on their first day. I was speaking to another CIO from a different company, and he said he still uses Lotus Notes and was trying to move on to Office 365. I was thinking, well, if I started work at your company and had Lotus Notes, I would leave on the first day. I think it's that big to get away from. People expect, the latest technology. They've grown up with it, especially for the millennials, and to come into an office where you can't use the latest tools, I think is going to be it's just going to be more and more important for retention of staff and hiring newer, younger generation of people coming through these days. So yeah, great to hear that you're trying to move away from Lotus Notes and get onto Office 365. If you need any other help, then let us know in the comments and we can make another video. Hope this was useful to everyone else as well, because these are some great questions that we have struggled with and tried and tested different things on. So hopefully it's of use to you as well. So remember to like the video, click subscribe and ring the bell icon if you haven't already. We've got new videos coming out every Tuesday on Teams, and let us know, what do you think about the setup? Have you got any better ways that you've set your teams up? Let us know in the comments below. And if you've got anything else that you want to know, please leave a question below and we'll either get back to you straight away or make a video about it. And then we think Teams is great for internal collaboration, especially in large companies. At MeeTime, we've got a meeting timer app that we think really helps drive people to better outcomes in their meetings more efficiently. It's available on the iOS App Store, available for iPhone. Search for MeeTime in the App Store or visit www.meetimeapps.com if you want to know anything further. We'd love it if you checked it out, and we'll see you in the next video.